All right, let's move on to our next topic. It has to do with the U.S. Secretary of
Secretary,
Commerce.
Commerce Secretary.
I always think in terms of foreign policy.
I know,
and right
I
there,
know.
Secretary of State comes to mind.
Well, so this is the third secretary that has been to China in the recent months
Exactly.
to try to ease tensions. So apparently Janet Yellen wasn't enough.
Tony Blinken.
Blinken, thank you. I was going to say Jerome Powell, but I was like, that's not the right person. Blinken and now Raimondo have gone to ease these tensions.
And don't forget to add another one.
Who?
CIA director.
CIA director. That's absolutely right.
But those are from a different channel per se, as we say, because that's the norm.
But we've used economic warfare more or less on China.
Yeah.
And so they've retaliated in some ways. And turns out neither economy is doing well with those choices.
Yes. And this is the reason why, for example, when you mentioned earlier about the leaks, that's the purpose of it. This is why I hesitated to talk about that deal that China cut with Germany because I wasn't certain myself. And I had to dig into all That's why I put all those links and I posted for you guys. It's because that shocked both Germany and the EU car manufacturers. And you know why? And I put the stats, the numbers, the sources, all that stuff. It's because they realized the European Union or Western countries for that matter, they realized that cutting off China from that ended up backfiring big time.
It's a bad idea. It's a huge economy. It is the emerging economy. It's a bad idea.
And this is why she's going. Will she achieve anything?
Okay, so here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So we have two sides. So this is an interesting phenomena that I actually learned about a couple of decades ago.
I'll share her picture.
Oh, thank you. So this is something I learned about a while ago. So one of the biggest and best tactics that a government has is to promote war, but then also have a faction inside of the population that wants peace. So you can go make war, but still look like you want peace. Right. So it's the public perception is that, oh no, the citizens really want peace. But the government just has to go to war. They just have to do this. And so it gives the perception that they're not warmongers, that they are in fact, desiring peace, but they just have to go do this.
Yeah.
So I see a similar situation happening here because and this is just my analysis, right? Because Biden has made some very, very strong statements, some very strong policies that they say are not anti-China, but they're anti-China without saying that they are. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I'm not going to say. There are a lot of people here in the United States that have very negative sentiments towards China. I think mostly because we have things like this that are saying the reason that the United States is failing is because of China. That is objectively not true. There are things about China that I do not appreciate. You know this. I get a lot of. I think I can say shit, right? I get a lot of shit from some of you guys about my stance on China, which is fairly neutral. But we have a lot of people here that are being led to believe that China is the reason for all of our economic problems. That is not true. Money printing was a huge reason for a lot of our economic problems. Taking our currency off the gold standard was a huge reason. Lobbyists are a huge reason. So the budget inflating is a huge reason. So it's not China bad, China caused all our problems. That is not true.
The US dollar has lost 85% of its value since the 70s when the dollar decoupled from gold, and the government seems bent on continuing the tradition. From now until after the next elections, the government can print as much money as they want. The last time they did that, inflation went up 9%. This means one thing: the security of your future and your family's future is all in your hands. Make sure you freeze the value of the wealth you're holding. Invest with Noble Gold Investments. Gold is the one asset that has proven to withstand recession, inflation, and just about all economic threats. Noble Gold Investments is here to help you if you want to invest in gold. You'll also get a 24 karat, 1/4 ounce gold standard coin for free. Go to geopoliticsgold.com now. That's geopoliticsgold.com, or simply call 1-877-646-5347, the only gold company I trust. And remember, there's always a risk with investments, and there are no guarantees of any kind.
But the government needs someone to blame that isn't them.
Well, that's why you have, for example, now the presidential candidates.
Yeah.
Especially, that's what they're aiming at. Oh, we gotta fight China because we can't let. So it's.
I was like, what an ignorant
well, that's how
point of view.
That's how they respond to their donors. Remember,
I know.
If they don't say that, the money will dry up.
Well, and I think right now the people in the United States have been fed this narrative for so long that that's also part of the deal. And so, there are I think there were Republicans who told who sent a letter to Raimondo, and I'm not either Republican or Democrat. I think there's good on both sides and bad on both sides. But they said, don't go do this, don't go ease tensions with China. And I thought about that for a second, and I said, they must not really understand what's at stake. They must not really understand the reality of where we are in that relationship with China. We cannot just decouple, which is the words that have been thrown around, right? We economically cannot. And the United States is in such bad shape economically right now anyway. And China's economy is also slowed.
Yeah. Actually, the French Minister of Commerce, I think I remember, if I recall, I read something. I wish I would have kept I like to keep the records.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Anyway, I read.
Sometimes they get scrubbed from the internet, so it's good to keep them.
So he said decoupling from China is nonsense. He's realizing, and France, believe it or not, behind closed doors, they are trying to keep the doors open. Even Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany himself, his relationship with China is different than other members of his cabinet, including the Minister of Economy and the Foreign Minister, Annalena Baerbock. Which, by the way, she's calling that China is a security threat to me. I was like, wow.
Well, that isn't necessarily wrong, but so is everyone else, right? Everyone is spying on everyone.
Yeah, but
everyone
at the same time, for her to use the
everyone.
terminology like that,
It's that same narrative. It's the same narrative. China bad, and is the reason. China and Russia bad, and they're the reason for all of the problems here. But if you look at that, if you agree with that, and you say, oh, they're the reason for all the problems here, who let Chinese investment into the United States? The U.S. government did that. It was if it were the situation where China or foreign entities were not allowed to purchase land in the United States.
Yeah, but at the same time, how can you block that when we have what's so-called capitalism?
Right.
So you have money, you buy it.
Other countries
Chinese happen to have money.
Right.
Simple as is that.
And they have. And that's what the U.S. wanted. The U.S. wanted that foreign investment. Well, the problem is if you ask for foreign investment, you're going to get it. And so now the politicians, decades too late, are saying, oh, well, we need to block it now.
No,
do you understand how long that investment's been here?
Well, the whole idea of ties to the foreign policy or the issue within foreign policy of containment.
Right.
And this is why I've always believed, way back when I even started my master's degree studies back then, I used to hear the term about containers, like where things are going, given that I've been watching since 1991.
Right.
I've been watching how the trend, and that's when I was hoping to go learn Chinese, because I knew where that thing's going to be in the next 20-25 years. So the idea of the containment thing, it's not going to work.
It doesn't make sense.
It's too late for it now.
Yeah.
So where the problem with all this that I see, this is why you have statements always from, if you noticed, and we can look at the records, they all say, well, we look forward to constructive discussion.
Right.
That's always the key terms that they use. Well, how can you look for constructive discussions when you are going on the other side, on the other end?
Yeah.
And creating issues or whatever you want to
Well, the answer to that
Yeah.
is that I think that they realized, like, the real people who are running our economy, okay, not the president, because the president does not have the control that the American people think that he does, or the world thinks that he does, quite frankly. So he doesn't have all that control.
Yeah.
So the people who are really running things are, and the corporations here are making less money. They're not happy about a lot of the things that Biden has put in place, right? And interestingly, if you look at people like Tim Cook, and if you look at people like Elon Musk, they have been very clear that they are not enemies with China, because they make a lot of money there, and they want to expand their market share in China. So it's interesting to me, and what I think is happening here is that the reality is that the face that Biden is putting on. So, they just had this Japanese, South Korean
Alliance.
At Camp David, right? So they had this summit between Biden and then the leaders of Japan and South Korea in Camp David, and they swear it wasn't anti-China. But if you look at what came out of that, it was, not positive.
And if you
towards
add,
China.
You add two things to this,
Mm-hmm.
Which I intend. By the way, the reason why I get this allegations and all that, it has to do with one of those countries in the region.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it has to do with Indonesia.
Ah.
So just to add to what you said, there are two other elements you need to add. Philippines just flipped.
Yeah.
We just flipped Philippines now. So Philippines is going with the US against China. Philippines, because remember, during Duterte, Duterte moved towards China.
Yeah.
Marcos Bongbong,
that's
his nickname. After his visit to the US, now he's being flipped. And I bet you this, during the visit, some arrangement has been made.
Oh, I'm sure.
And you know what it's about? His family assets, because they were frozen in the US. So it just flipped.
Yeah.
I just did a video on it. On
well,
Bongbong.
And honestly, how can you trust anybody whose assets are frozen in the United States who's a leader? Like, how can you trust that?
That's true. Then you add that the second question is not the question, but rather the second issue is Indonesia. Now, the analysis that's coming up from certain entities suggesting that, Indonesia could be pulled into a conflict between China and the US. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's misleading.
I hope not.
That is misleading. This is where academia can really manipulate the wording of it.
Yeah.
Why they are pushing this narrative, especially if you find out who's funding where those analyses coming from.
Yeah.
This is what I want you guys to learn. Anytime you read something, pay close attention to how it's worded.
Yeah.
Because here is the thing. Indonesia, its economy is considered one of the top performers in ASEAN.
Yeah.
That's one.
Absolutely.
Second, it has a good relations with China because of economics.
Yeah.
And third, Australia is concerned about Indonesia because that's a competition.
Yeah.
So this is why we want and established two things. One with Papua New Guinea, entered into a military agreement. And second one on two countries, Philippines and India. On Philippines, we expanded more bases. And with India, we're going to establish a naval hub.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So this is why you can't be thinking, it's only this issue or that issue. No.
You're absolutely right.
No. There are a host of moving parts. And an average Joe, average Jane, there is no way.
They don't. And they just hear China, Russia, bad.
Exactly. But also this highlights to you one of the key aspects when it comes down to changes within the global stage.
Yeah.
When a sitting power is in decline, it tends to embark on a very, very incohesive policies.
Yeah.
That's what we are seeing now.
Yeah.
And what am I referring to here? I am referring to the United States, of course, but in response to what? In response to the latest summit of BRICS.
Yep.
Because it's expanding.
Yep.
Now you are seeing we're going to be embarking on more.
Yeah.
ill-conceived policies like what we're seeing right now.
Well, and it's so interesting because we get called anti-American all the time, and it is not about that. I love being here. I love the United States.
It's our country.
It's our country, and it's so full of beautiful people and places. The reality is that we're now seeing on a global stage the rest of the world saying, hey, all that stuff that you were doing for decades, we, number one, don't appreciate it, and number two, we're going to try and take you guys out. And so militarily they can't do it, but economically they'll be able to.
And that's why the reason why we're doing the course.
Government course. It will be up for sale after this live stream. So check it out. Yes. Later today, guys, in the description, if you're watching this later, it will be in the link will be in the description box. And if you guys see it on this show, we're going to give you 20% off. So I'll put a code in there too for 20%.
Yeah, why not? Do it
if you guys are watching this.
Hey, that's some of our subscribers been with us since we started. I still remember names.
Yeah, I do too. We haven't seen Boone in a while. I'd love to see Boone. Boone, if you're out there.
He's busy. He's busy probably because he did put something on a Discord and I responded to it. He's busy. So
but
yeah, the course, guys, we're gonna that's it.
Yeah, we'll launch it. It's launching today. So guys, check it out in the description box below.
And I will be detailing a lot of stuff about all this because it's important for people.
Well, and it's important because, if we're going to save ourselves here in the United States, the first part of any big issue is being honest about what the issue is. And so if we're hiding what the issue is behind, watching the debates was almost embarrassingly bad. When people talk about our interactions with China, with Russia, the Ukraine situation, all they have is this really surface level understanding. They just have, well, Russia did this and then China is bad for these reasons. And without any real understanding of how complex these issues are. They're really complex. And to just boil them down to these are the reasons you have all these problems in life, it takes away from what the real problems are, and it doesn't let us solve them. And if we don't solve them in our lifetimes, we're going to watch the US dollar not become the reserve currency anymore. And we're going to watch the US decline and lose its hegemony. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe a multipolar shift is a good thing, but I can tell you watching the US decline is not great. It is pretty terrible to watch the US decline like this. And nobody is talking about how complex the issues are that got us here, or the fact that cooperation is going to be the thing that gets us out of it. Instead of looking at everybody as an enemy, which the military-industrial complex has to do to justify wars all the time. Instead of looking at everyone as an enemy, why can't we look at them as other human beings who are living on this planet, who want the same things that we do?
Yeah, because that doesn't bring money.
I know, but it's the way reality that we will survive.
I know. So, let's wrap up this before we move to the next topic. So the idea of the Commerce Secretary going to China to discuss ways of
boosting commerce.
Forget about it. They're gonna be just talks. And Chinese are smart enough to know they will sit down, give the protocol, because that's a protocol. You can't break it. And Chinese are good at that. They will do the protocol and all that. But that doesn't mean they're gonna consume whatever we're gonna say. So.
Well, to its credit, I actually hope that this works on some level because both the U.S. and the Chinese economy are being hit by this.
We are more than the Chinese are.
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
I looked. The Chinese also, yes, they do have some slowdown in sorts of the economy and all that. And even for the high unemployment, whatever that was. But that was for a segment of society that is
the young segment. It's
very, very young. Because when you look at that, even for us here in the U.S., that age brackets, between 14, I think, and
I think it was 16 and 25 or something like that.
Still not in the full force of the unemployment, employments and all that stuff. So, but Europeans are feeling the pinch of it. American companies are feeling the pinch of it. And now with the outcome of the BRICS expanding into adding 6 more countries, that's the reason why she's there to find out. So
well. For what it's worth, I actually hope that there is some resolution they come to.
Let's hope.